Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck tech idea. Today we are taking a look at Eladamri Korvecdal. He's a 3 mana 3/3 and you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library, and he also has an activated ability that says for 1 green, tapping him and tapping 2 untapped creatures you control, reveal a card from your hand or the top of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, put it onto the battlefield, activate only during your turn. Eladamri is going to put some really honest mono green work into this game, as you can only activate this ability during your turn, and we are going to play him as a mono green big stompy commander. We want to bring out Eladamri as fast as possible and use his activated ability to cheat out big creatures that will swing for the win. Cards that we want to reveal from our hand or from the top of our library are, for example, Vault-Born Tyrant, a 7 mana 6/6 with trample, and when it or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life and draw a card. When it dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Due to the fact that your deck is going to be filled to the brim with powerful creatures, Vault-Born Tyrant will most likely always draw you a card and you will also gain life. So this is an insurance that you will never run out of gas. And even if the board gets wiped, you will still get a copy of Vault-Born Tyrant. For a little bit of interaction, we play Korvecdal the Titan Ape, a 6 mana 7/6, and when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. When it attacks, destroy target artifact or enchantment defending player controls. It also has an activated ability for 2 mana, and returning target human you control to its owner's hand, Korvecdal gains indestructible until end of turn. Let's play a stacks piece. We play Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, an 8 mana 7/6 with trample, and whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any type that land produced. And here's the stacking line: whenever an opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. If we cannot untap Eladamri and use its activated ability several times in a turn, we will just cheat in Ghalta Stampede Tyrant, an 8 mana 12/12 with trample, and when it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. It is very important for us that our creatures can immediately attack, so we also play Surrak and Goreclaw, a 6 mana 6/5 with trample, and other creatures you control have trample. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it, it gains haste until end of turn. To accelerate our game plan, we also play Nyxbloom Ancient, a 7 mana 5/5 with trample, and if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. I have said earlier that we can also try to activate Eladamri several times in a turn, so we need to untap him, which is why we play cards like Seeker of Skybreak, a 2 mana 2/1, and we can tap it to untap target creature. Depending on our board state, we can either use Seeker to use him for Eladamri's activated ability, or if we have enough creatures on the field, we will use the Seeker to untap Eladamri to use his activated ability again. We also play Copperhorn Scout, a 1 mana 1/1, and whenever it attacks, untap each other creature you control. This will allow us to use Eladamri's ability in our second main phase again, or we will just accept the current board state and leave up a bunch of blockers. We also play Quirion Ranger, a 1 mana 1/1, and we can also return a forest to our hand to untap target creature, but we can only activate this once each turn, which is definitely enough for us, because cheating 2 powerful creatures into play is definitely worth it. We also play a few combat tricks, so we play Gift of the Viper, a 1 mana instant, put a 1/1 counter, a reach counter and a death touch counter on target creature, untap it. This powerful cantrip does it all for us. We can pump up Eladamri to maybe get him out of burn spell range, use it in a defensive way to give one of our creatures reach and death touch, or we can use it in an offensive way to simply untap Eladamri and use his activated ability again. We also play Benefactor's Drought, a 2 mana instant, untap all creatures until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls blocks, draw a card, and in addition to that you draw a card. Not only does this card replaces itself itself. Because we get to draw a card, we also untap all of our creatures, which can definitely surprise our opponents out of nowhere. Emerald Charm, a 1 mana instant, choose one. Either we untap target permanent, we destroy target non-aura enchantment, or target creature loses flying until end of turn. This flexible instant can be used in a lot of different ways and we will definitely abuse that. We also need to find the creatures that we want to cheat into play, which is why we play Fauna Shaman, a 2 mana 2/2, and for 1 green tapping it and discarding a creature card, search library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand and then shuffle. Fauna Shaman will allow us to find the creature that we need for the current situation, which we will then cheat into play with Eladamri. We also play Fierce Empath, a 3 mana 1/1, and when it enters the battlefield you may search a library for a creature card with mana value 6 or greater, reveal it, put it into your hand and then shuffle. This little creature does it all for us. It finds a powerful creature into our hand, and in addition to that it also will be tapped for Eladamri's ability. Of course we play Worldly Tutor, a 1 mana instant, search a library for a creature card, reveal it, then shuffle and put the card on top. Due to the fact that we will be cheating in a lot of high power creatures, we also want to abuse their powerful stat lines, so we play Greater Good, a 4 mana enchantment, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. With this on the battlefield we can cheat in Galter Stampede Tyrant, hold priority, sacrifice Galter into Greater Good, draw 12 cards, discard 3 and cheat in a bunch of powerful creatures when Galter's ability resolves. To reverse the outlands, a 5 mana sorcery, search a library for up to X basic land cards where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Put those cards onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle. Of course we play Rishkar's Expertise, a 6 mana sorcery, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control, and you may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. We play the Skullspawn Nexus, an 8 mana legendary artifact, but it costs X less to cast where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. It's also a great board wipe insurance, because whenever 1 or more non-token creatures you control die, create a green fungus dinosaur creature token with base, power and toughness each equal to the total power of those creatures. It also has a very helpful activated ability for 2 mana and tapping it, double target creature's power until end of turn. We also play Last March of the Ants, an uncounterable 8 mana sorcery, and draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control. Then put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. We can also use Return of the Wild Speaker, a 5 mana instant, choose one, draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. You want to win more? You get it. Another really dangerous creature that you can cheat in is Blightsteel Colossus, a 12 mana 11/11 with Trample, Infect and Indestructible. If it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal Blightsteel Colossus and shuffle it into his owner's library. If you can cheat this creature into play, there's a pretty high chance that one of your opponents won't make it to their next turn. We also play Vitalize, a 1 mana instant, untap all creatures you control. Again, you can use this in an offensive way by using it during your turn to cheat another creature into play with Eladamri, or in a defensive way by passing the turn, and when your opponents swing at you, you can use this one to surprise them out of nowhere. And last but not least we play Concordant Crossroads, a 1 mana world enchantment. All creatures have haste. It is very important in this deck that you don't take your foot off the pedal, so giving all creatures haste is extremely powerful, especially when you play cards like Vitalize to ambush your opponents when they want to give you a clapback. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I will play in Eladamri Korvecdal. Let me know down in the comments below which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.